bear with us.
Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad. Kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad. Kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Amma ba'd. Alhamdulillah, today we will be completing Jawab al-Shikwa, this journey that started in October of 2020, wherein we went through a pandemic. You know, the world's trajectory has literally changed, and so many folks that were with us are no longer with us. Masajid closed, masajid opened, people were in quarantine, people came out of quarantine. There was no vaccine, now there is a vaccine. A lot has happened, alhamdulillah. And we're gonna go ahead and get into this. Dr. Saab, if I may, is it okay if I read today?
Say that again.
If it's okay with you, can I go ahead and read it?
Please do.
Okay. Bismillah. मर्दम चश्मे ज़मी यानी वो काली दुनिया, वो तुम्हारे शुहदा पालने वाली दुनिया, गर्मी महर की परवरदा बिलाली दुनिया, इश्क वाले जैसे कहते हैं, और सॉरी हिलाली दुनिया, इश्क वाले जैसे कहते हैं बिलाली दुनिया, तेश अंदोज है इस नाम से पारे की तरह, गोताए जन नूर में है आंख के तारे की तरह.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Alhamdulillah. Would you like to go ahead and
yeah, please, let me just go the mardam mein chashme zami yani wo kali duniya. Now this verse, this band 6 verses and the next 6 verses also are in the praise of our beloved prophet, and in this particular band he is praising the African countries, Habasha. Okay, so he says mard mein chashme zami. मर्द में चश्म होती है, आंख के अंदर जो पुतली होती है ना, प्यूपिल, उसको कह रहा है मर्द में चश्मे जमीन. जमीन की पुतली जो है, आंख की पुतली, वो जमीन यानी वो काली दुनिया, यहाँ यानी कि जहाँ पे काले लोग रहते हैं, वो तुम्हारे शुहदा पालने वाली दुनिया, वो दुनिया जिसमें तुम्हारे शहीद पल रहे हैं. इश्क वाले जैसे कहते हैं बिलाली दुनिया, इश्क वाले जो मोहब्बत करने वाले हैं, जो हुजूर पाक से इश्क करते हैं, मोहब्बत करते हैं, अल्लाह रब्बुल इज्जत से इज्जत करते हैं, वो उसे हजरत बिलाल की दुनिया कहते हैं कि बिलाल हबशा से आए थे. तो तपशामोज है, तपशामोज है मीन्स तपश हीट को कहते हैं, आमोज यानी कि उसको कहते हैं कि जो इस वक्त तड़प रही है, तब बेचैन है, रेस्टलेस है. तपशामोज है इस नाम से पारे की तरह, लाइक मर्करी. It's very vibrant and moving right now. वो ताज़ा नूर में है. It's actually light के अंदर it's going diving down and then coming back up, diving down again. तो आंख के तारे की तरह, वो ताज़ा नूर में है, आंख के तारे की तरह. It's really now immersed in the light of Iman, basically a light of Islam. That all these six verses basically is praising African nations, African continent, basically saying that that particular land is, which is the pupil of the eye of the earth, that is the one that has nurtured those people who have given their lives in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are the one, they are immersed in total love, ishq, and they are really immersed in light, like you would see light in the eye pupil of an eye. In other words, they are totally into Islam.
डॉक्टर साहब, ये एक तीसरा वो मिसरा रह गया, गर्मी महर की परवरदा हिलाली दुनिया, इसका मतलब बता.
गर्मी महर इसकी परवरदा हिलाली दुनिया. ये हिलाली दुनिया means the Islamic crescent जो है ना, हिलाल उसको कहते हैं ना, that is a Islamic world. गर्मी मेहर is the सूरज की गर्मी की परवरदा, सूरज की गर्मी से पाली हुई ये कौम जो इस्लामिक वर्ल्ड हो गई है, इश्क वाले जैसे कहते हैं बलाली दुनिया. हाँ, वो एक मिसरा लाइन रह गई थी. I'm sorry, I'm glad you reminded. See, Iqbal doesn't leave out anything. Iqbal, when he described this nation, he says that this is the center of the world, this African nation of the people with the dark skin. They are the ones that have really nurtured those who are willing to give up their life. They are the ones that have been nurtured by the sunlight. Because of the sunlight, their skin have become also sunburned, so to speak. But they are Hilali Dunya. They are the Dunya of Hilal, of a crescent, Islam. Ishq wale jise kehte hain, Bilali Dunya. If you want to be really compassionate and you want to use the word of the Sufis and spiritualists, they will call it the word of the Bilal, because Bilal is the ultimate follower of Islam and totally immersed in the love of the Prophet. Again, he is using the name. तपशामोज इस नाम से, नाम मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम, इस नाम की वजह से तपशामोज है पारे की तरह. They are basically restless because of this name. They have really been moved and shaken by this name, and they are totally immersed in the love. Now they are immersed in the light of Islam. Beautiful. He is praising Bilal, he is praising Habasha, he is praising African continent in this one band. And he says all of this is because of the name, this particular name.
Yeah. I was actually so baffled at this band, because I think also this is something that we don't speak about. Everyone is aware of the Arab Muslims, right? You're aware of the Turks, you're aware of the Afghans, you're aware of even in Spain. We know about all these different Muslims, but we forget that there is a very large and alive Islamic tradition to this day in the African continent. And I'm not talking about East Africa, referring to like Egypt and North Africa, but the West African, Gambian, Senegalese tradition is one which is so rooted in the Quran, so rooted in Islamic traditions, that they actually have like a full-blown Sufi tariqa known as a Tijaniya that goes from there. And some of the greatest reciters of the Quran also come from there. Amir, I don't know if this was during your time, but was, when I was at Harvard, we had Dr. Usman Khan who was there, who was the grandson of Dr. Ibrahim Niyas. Was he there when you were there as well?
No, he was not. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. Is he the veterinary professor?
The what?
Oh, is he a professor of veterinary sciences?
No. He's actually, so he's now at the Div school, but
okay,
he's the grandson of Sheikh Ibrahim Niyas. And Sheikh Usman is like an African trained sheikh. And a lot of the course material that he actually brought to Harvard was on Islam in Africa.
Beautiful.
Right? And that's his main focus. So,
I did.
Yeah.
As a classmate, I did as an undergraduate have a classmate named Ojis Tijani, in fact, who was West African and very much from that tradition. So that was the first time I came across the Tijani Tariqa, was through his name.
Yeah, and right now, actually, for the Muslims at Harvard, people don't know this, but it's Dr. Khan who holds like a weekly dhikr and teaches people like basic Islam to these students at Harvard based on the African Islamic tradition, the West African Islamic tradition. And it's the same tradition that Sheikh Mendes also has taught a lot of people about, that people forget about, especially in the Muslim community. And I find it really interesting that he is talking about here the beauty of Bilal radiallahu anh. And I think in the Muslim community today, the amount of racism or anti-Blackness that may exist completely goes against what the Islamic tradition tells us about Black folks in the community, African-American people in the community, or even Islam in Africa is something people are just unaware of, but then we'll call out and say that Bilal radiallahu anhu was this and Bilal radiallahu anhu was that. And we end up tokenizing Black voices in the community. But it's showing here that, and I find this very interesting because in the beginning of Jawab al-Shikwa, right, and even in Shikwa, it was a lot of talk about these different groups, right, about the Afghans and about the Arabs and about the Turks and all these different groups that were spoken about in Shikwa. Sure, like we did all this stuff for you and we spread Islam all throughout, you know, the desert, and we spread Islam throughout the forests and the jungles, but it's only the African Muslims that are not spoken about negatively in this poem. They are only spoken about positively here. Right? They're spoken about that when other people would not give Sahara to the Prophet ﷺ and his companions, it was the African nation of Abyssinia at that time and their king, the Negus, that gave them the protection that they needed, that supplied it to them.
Beautiful.
People forget that.
Yep.
But yeah, I was just really baffled reading this, and I'm just like, wow. It's like he's writing about Black Muslims in such a positive light now, and people completely overlook this in our communities today.
Bilkul.
And Iqbal has a whole poem, Najashi ke darbar mein Jafar Tayyar ki taqreer. Yeah, this is a whole poem that Iqbal wrote just on the same topic, expanding on the reception that the Muslims got in Abyssinia.
Yeah, that's right.
And not only that, referring to them as Mardam Chashme Zameen, referring to the fact as the pupil of the eye, but also not just saying that it's the part you see, it's the center of it, right?
Yep.
This is the center of the world. This is what it's supposed to look like. And you know, maps, this is a side point, but the way we look at maps today is a very Eurocentric way of looking at maps. But if you are to really look at a map, Africa is actually much bigger in size in reality than the way the maps will show us. And it just comes down to they wanted to show Europe on the top and everyone else on the bottom. But actually, if you look at it other ways, the east was on the west and the west was on the east. You know how we see North America on the left side. Actually, North America and whatnot was seen on the right side of the map, and it was more so centered around the fact that Africa was the center of the world. So
it still is. Culturally, you may not find it or whatever else, but when it comes to the matter of globe,
yeah,
this is the center of the world, and he has called it Mardam Chashme Zameen. Basically, that is basically like a aankh ki putli, you know, like a pupil of an eye of the world. And if you look at it geographically, so to speak, closest to the sun, it's Garmi Meher ki Parvurda. This is nurtured by the heat of the sun. So this is closer to the sun, and that is another testament to the fact that he really is praising African continent specifically here in this particular band.
Yeah.
And he says Islam is very, very much vibrant there and immersed in the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because they love this name. Now these verses and the previous two bands also were in the praise of the name, Isme Muhammad, the name of our beloved Prophet. Okay, and he said this is all basically a tafsir of Warafana Laka Zikrak. He says that is what is going on in this, because don't forget when he made the Shikwa and he started to write the Jawab Shikwa, he's coming to the final point, and he says this is the essence of Iman, Isme Muhammad. And if you are loyal to that, if you are recognizing the nature of this particular name and this being, then you will know that that is what really is required of you.
Yeah.
So this is beautiful.
What was Parvarda?
Parvarda is nurtured, pale hue, something that has been brought up with the energy that actually raised it.
Yeah.
Parvarish karna hota hai na kisi ko palna. Parvarish is nurturing someone and raising somebody. Bachcho ki parvarish means you're raising the children. If Parvarda is somebody that is raised.
Yeah.
Garmi hai meher, dhoop ki garmi, suraj ki garmi. Meher is suraj. Hilali is crescent. Hilal crescent ko kehte hai na.
Yeah.
He's giving so many praises to that continent in just these 6 lines. It's amazing. He called it Bilali, he called it Hilali, he called Shuhada ke palne wali, he calls Mardam Chashme Zameen, and Ishq se pur hai and it really moves with that name, and it's immersed in the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the love for beloved Prophet. Beautiful band.
Yeah. Shahrukh, what was the name of that poem which you had said that that Allama Iqbal had written?
The name of the poem is Najashi ke darbar mein Jafar bin Tayyar ki nazm. So this is basically referencing the entry of the Muslim delegation that was sent to the Abyssinian king's court to get refuge, and Jafar bin Tayyar was an uncle of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he had led that delegation into that Abyssinian court. And there's some historical reference that Jafar bin Tayyar at that point made an introduction of Islam and explained what the Muslims stand for and who Muslims are. And Iqbal basically explains and historically enacts that event in a poem.
Yeah, okay. Sounds good. Does anyone else have anything to add on this before we move on?
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum, Nihal. Just with your permission, if I can ask Dr. Rashid, aapne hame join kariye? Is Dr. Rashid on the line?
Dr. Parveen Rashid?
No, it's Dr. Rashid. He's a cardiologist, retired. So he's been trying and having difficulty joining us. I've been hoping that...
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, now.
Okay, everybody.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saab. मैं 1 मिनट में आपका थोड़ा सा इंट्रोडक्शन करा दूं.
अच्छा.
Dr. Rashid, आपकी इजाजत से, Dr. Rashid is somebody I was looking for last 4 months to join us, and luckily I was able to get in touch with him last week. So Dr. Rashid is, retired cardiologist. He inki apni zubani, he has spent more time reading Iqbal than he has read the medicine.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah.
And he is 81 years young, and he had so much energy the few times that I've met him. So, but he will be, with us hopefully from here on. इनकी बदौलत हम सब फैज़ाब होंगे और माशाल्लाह बस इतनी ही मैं कहूँगा तो आगे इंशाल्लाह आप खुद ही देख लेंगे इनको इंशाल्लाह तो डॉक्टर
welcome
most welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, let's do the last one, Nihal.
Okay, sounds good.
Beautiful.
अकल है तेरी सिपर इश्क है शमशीर तेरी मेरे दरवेश खिलाफत है जहांगीर तेरी मासी अल्लाह के लिए आग है तकबीर तेरी तुम मुसलमान हो तो तकदीर है तदबीर तेरी कि मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम से वफा तूने तो हम तेरे हैं ये जहां चीज है क्या लौह कलम तेरे हैं.
Beautiful.
So I can say, I think this is the last verse of Ki Muhammad se wafa tune to hum tere hain. So God is saying to the Muslim people that this is the reality. And this is the last verse of Jawab-e-Shikwa, I think.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So I can just Jawab-e-Shikwa today. We have finished Shikwa and Jawab. Today is the last.
So this is the last verse.
Yes.
So I think we are not allowed to speak Urdu, just English, right?
नहीं
Urdu. Yeah, both work.
अच्छा both, क्योंकि उर्दू से कई बातें उर्दू से बड़ी अच्छी लगती हैं.
Let me go over it first after Nihal has recited it, and then we will open it up. Aql hai teri sipar is your defense, the hal. Ishq hai shamshir teri. Ishq is compassion, love, ultimate love. That is shamshir. That is your sword, so to speak. But that is your basically something that you fight with. Mere darwesh, the one that is looking for me, my seeker, khilafat hai jahangir teri. Your sovereignty, your reign will be jahangir, global, throughout the world. So you are my Khalifa, and you are Khalifa for the entire world. Jahangir that will cover the entire world. Ma siwa Allah ke liye, anybody other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, aag hai takbir teri. When you say takbir, that really will burn everything else other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a deity. Tu Musalman hai, to takdir hai tadbir teri. If you are a true believer, then whatever you really do, that becomes your fortune, your fate, your future. So in other words, whatever you will do, you will be writing, whatever tadbir you will do will become your takdir. That will be written as your destiny. And then the key misra is ki Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ki Muhammad se wafat tune, to hum tere hain. Ye jahan cheez hai kya? Lauh kalam tere hain. If you are loyal to my beloved prophet, final messenger of mine, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then I am yours. And you talk about this world, ye jahan cheez hai kya? What is this word? Lauh kalam tere hain. Lauh is where I write the destiny and fortune of the entire universe. Kalam is the hand by which I write. So those things, the ability to write the fortune and on which you write the fortune, all of that will become yours once you become his, and then I am yours. Beautifully, Iqbal has used these words that are amazingly consistent with the teachings of Quran and with basically the message that he's trying to give us. So he's giving the secret, that the secret of really attaining your power like you had before, like the ancestors did, that you were complaining that you have lost and all that. He says that is because you have to go back and what is happening with this light here? I can't seem to get it. Here it is. Okay. Then basically the way to get my favor again and succeed in life is that you have devote yourself fully to my beloved prophet.
Yeah.
And for that he gave the nuskha, the prescription. Use akal and use ishq. These two things, one to defend, the other to really go ahead and conquer.
I think also when he's using aql and ishq together, it's very interesting because at this point when Allama Iqbal has gone to Europe and studied and in Munich and Oxford, you know, he's at this time the British Empire is about to secede away from India in about whatever 30 more years, right? And all of these different things are being drawn out. And you would think that somebody that goes there becomes more influenced by European thought and then begins to forget their own Islamic identity. But the fact that he's not just saying aqal, right, to use rationale, to use empiricism to decide your life. He's also saying ishq hai shamshir teri, that there is a sense of love that has to push that forward. Because also in these areas, being a philosopher, what is love? Love is not something of value. Love doesn't bring you intellectual freedom. Love doesn't provide that. So the fact that he's saying that and going against that is quite daring, if I may say.
You know, this is beautiful. No? You are right, hitting the point beautifully. He says to defend, use your logic and your intellect to defend yourself. To win an argument, use your rationale. And yet, ishq hai shamshir teri. Do you want to spread this thing? Then you will have to use love and passion. You have to use love everybody. That's what you spread it with. That's your sword. That you spread it with that, but to defend and win an argument over other faith systems, you have to use your rationale and intellect so that you can respond to it rationally and defend yourself that way. And then when it comes to spreading it, do it with love. So he has given a good prescription to defend and also to spread forward, make others, win over others.
Yeah.
Dr. One question here. Imam Nihal, you bring an excellent point. And please, if I can have a little bit more explanation from Dr. Saab. He's calling Aql the shield. So obviously shield is supposed to be, used in a defensive maneuver. So when you are on the back foot. And ishq is for aggressive or in a forward kind of, way with the sword. So please explain that he is using, he wants us to go ahead, forge ahead with ishq, using ishq as the sword. And then when we have to be on the back foot, or when we have to be defensive, should we bring up the defenses of aql?
Yes, exactly. He says you will have to use your rationale, because people will attack you. They'll say, if there's God, I want to see it. Where is he? Then you have to use logic. But when you want to win them over, be passionate. Be passionate. That's where you use ishq. Ishq and love for humanity, and embrace everybody, like Rumi does. Okay? Like Iqbal. Iqbal basically did not have that kind of an exposure that Rumi did, but with love and passion, bring people, win them over. That is your offense, so to speak. Although Shamsir and offense looks kind of aggressive, but this is not aggressive. He's be passionate in your forwardness, and yet have the rationale to fight back. If somebody says that, listen, all right, if God made everything, who made God? Then you have to rationally respond to that. Don't walk away from it. So you have to keep ishq also alongside as an ornament, as your armament. But this is basically to defend yourself when the others attack your belief system. To actually spread Islam, use passion, use love, use embracing them. And that is the universal message of Islam. Take everybody. Don't say anything negative about anybody's faith system, but win them over by argument only. Whenever they come up with any argument, then give them a logical answer, so that you can't drop logic at all. You know, that doesn't work. You really have to give a logical answer and satisfy their curiosity as well as their intellect, so that you can win them over that way. That is, if they are trying to attack your religion, then that's your defense. But if they are not attacking you and you're spreading your message, then use only love. Do not try to just use logic, because that will waste your time. There you use love and passion, accommodation and brotherliness, and no discrimination. Everybody is equal under, in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That kind of a love, which is unique with Islam, by the way.
One thing I'll also say, having grown up here and then did my undergrad and going and studying it in Indian madrasa, it really opens up your mind to some certain things. But and then coming back here, you have people sometimes on two different sides of the aisle, I like to say, talking about Muslims. On one group, and it's really interesting, because when you study the Islamic historical intellectual tradition of the subcontinent, we're literally repeating the same thing that happened 100 plus years ago. You have like the Aligarh Muslim University movement at that time with Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, trying to show that rational sciences are the way to go. And then you have the Deoband movement and saying, no, we need to understand religious sciences. But in my personal view, 100 plus years later, Muslims are still struggling with the same thing. You have people trying to understand faith from the perspective of rational sciences here. And then you have also people who don't want to engage with rational sciences and say that Islamic texts are the only way to go, as opposed to understanding that, aqal apni istemal karo, right? Empiricism is important. Rational sciences are important, but they come from a different epistemology, which is, how we define things. And then the Islamic tradition has different epistemologies. There are two different ways of looking at things, and they may have come up under whatever circumstances they came up in. But I feel like if Muslims just understood this, look, love your faith, and don't feel insecure about your faith, because rational sciences cannot always prove faith, because rational sciences are for rational sciences, right? That's the point. You don't apply one system of measurement upon another system of measurement. You don't sit there and measure a gallon of milk on your weighing scale. It's not going to work. It's not on your weight scale, for example. Sometimes you have to go to a metric system. Sometimes you have to go to pounds. Sometimes the weight is too heavy. Sometimes the weight is too light. But I think here, if somebody has love is not rational. And that's what I love to say. Love is not rational. Why do you love your wife or your husband? What intellectual reason do you have to love another human being? None. There's
Why
nothing.
why does mother love every child? Every mother loves their child. You know, not every child. When you look at 10 children playing out in the ground, you will find somebody that's not really likable.
अगर इस concept को हम लोग scientific method पे apply करेंगे ना, concept बिल्कुल fail हो जाएगा.
Exactly.
Right. So that doesn't mean that love is wrong, and that doesn't mean the scientific method is wrong. Right. They're just two separate things.
Science is evolving. It's always incomplete. It's always learning. It's always contradicting itself by year. But love, no. Passion, no. Passion is always there, always to the extreme. And that is the way Iqbal is suggesting we should give our message. Beautiful.
Yeah. And then here as well, Khilafat.
Allama Iqbal, I think, Allama ka ek bada pyara, these are beautiful verse. Maqam-e aql se aasan guzar gaya Iqbal, maqam-e shauq mein khoya gaya wo farzana. Exactly same verse. मकाम अकल से आसान गुजर गया इकबाल मकाम शौक में खोया गया वो फरजाना शौक और इश्क same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There he says farzana, when it became khoya gaya wo farzana is a person that is really madly in love. In other words, that's where he was totally intoxicated in passion. Or maqam aql se aasan guzar gaya, that was easy for him. I mean, traveling through the intellectual pathway was not difficult at all. Anybody that wants to do that can read up to PhD and then he'll be done. But
another appropriate, I'm sorry for the interruption, another appropriate verse, wo ye hai ke, let me see, gar sahib hangama na ho mamro mehrab, ye bhi Allama sahab hain, gar sahib hangama na ho mamro mehrab, दी बंदाए मोमन के लिए मौत है या ख्वाब. What I'm trying to say is, no, we are talking about the meaning of the verse. I say it will not work out like that. We had that literature. It was workable some time ago. Now people have gone ahead. Now it's not the matter of you. It is what you are comparing yourself with. If somebody else is different than you and is powerful, then you don't stand the chance, even though you are right. You have a religion without a power, it will vanish. A religion without power is much weaker, there is no force in it. There has to be a power. And if we don't have the power, we may be right. We stand no chance.
Yeah, well, that is the topic of the nation building and power building and all that. That's the Mimbro Mera part. Yeah, that is basically bringing up a totally different kind of a aspect of religiosity. But here we are talking about the love of the beloved Prophet and how you use the passion to spread Islam. So yes, ishq he has used and aql in many different kind of comparisons, in different perspectives, in different backgrounds. We will inshallah learn more about that in our future sessions. But this basically was the secret that he gave at the end, the secret of your success and really being close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again, that you're complaining about in your shikwa. That secret is that be totally subservient to the message that my beloved Prophet brought to you. Once you do that, then you can write your own taqdeer. Then you are master of your fate. Then you will be successful. And don't forget that your success has to be totally for the entire world. You belong to the entire world, not just for one nation or one area, a geographical area, but you are Jahangir. Your caliphate is Jahangir. Don't forget that. So you have to be aware of your status as to what you have to do, spread all over the globe. And for that, love will conquer everything.
You know, there's something else that
when we have we stand no chance to compare with other people. So love is not lacking. We know we have it, and we have in literature and in thoughts, but we are weak because there are other people who have taken us over. Because
Dr. Saab, you are bringing up a totally different topic. We are not discussing that today. We are not talking about Islamic power or why Islam today is down or this and that. We're talking basically about Jawab-e-Shikwa's message, which basically is that we have to get back to our principles, our love and use intellect and all that to win over. And for that, the secret is the love of our beloved Prophet. So that is the topic basically that we're covering. I realize that there are so many other lessons that we will be getting from Iqbal's message and his poetry. And we can analyze as to why we are worldly wise weak. We may be weak today in political power, but that's not what we're talking about today. Our Islamic power belief system still is very strong, like you said, and Islam is still the most widely spreading religion in the world. Its message is still acceptable to most people once it's explained properly. And that is really the message that this band and the 2-3 bands before that have given us, that use your intellect to defend yourself basically and win over the arguments, but to spread your message, be very, very accommodating, peaceful and passionate and loving. And do not downgrade anybody, do not practice discrimination, do not think that anybody is lower to you by birth or birthplace or whatever, but make sure that you are loyal to the message that was given by the final messenger. And that message was brotherhood and loving everyone as children of Adam. And
but we have to live in the current world. Where do we stand as compared to the other people? So we cannot talk to our own selves or between us. We have to correlate ourselves with the rest of the world.
Yes,
that
part is true.
I just want to say that, if we look at the life of our own Prophet, after he did his best, he was not able to convince everybody about, his message. So what did he do after that?
Very good. That was my point.
No,
right.
No, 1 minute. No, I'm not done. So what he did after that was that he taught us to respect other religions, because if you don't respect them, or if, then you will not be respected. So, and he had the hope that even if these people have not gotten his message, he had the hope that maybe their children or grandchildren will get the message. So it was always this love and for the humanity, that even those who did not agree with him or were not convinced, he had hope that they would at some point, or their children or their grandchildren would will get the message.
Exactly. Passion, that's where the love is.
There was something I actually did want to mention. If someone were to flip this, ishq hai teri sipar or aqal hai shamsheer teri. And I think that's where the problem becomes, because now if we use love as something on the defensive, and then aqal hum log sabko kaat rahe apne aqal se, then it becomes actually very egotistical. It becomes
that's right.
madness.
That won't work. That will not work.
And not only that, right? ये अगर ये हमारे रसूल सल्लम की मोहब्बत के बारे में ये, Iqbal is speaking. The other opposite spectrum of this is that people sometimes do what? Sometimes when you see people, for example, commit violence in the name of insulting the Prophet ﷺ, right? यहाँ पे कोई अकल इस्तेमाल नहीं कर रहा है ना? उन लोग ने अपनी इश्क को, उन लोग ने अपनी अकल को शमशीर बना दी उस मामले में. Or then they make their love defensive. No, we love him so much that we will kill and murder people for him. That becomes problematic. And I was just looking at it from that perspective. And then number 2, Khilafat hai Jahangir teri, the anti-nationalist sentiment that's also mentioned here, that we're not supposed to be nationalists at the end of the day. That what we really believe is Masi wallah ke liye aag hai takbir teri. That when we understand God and understand God in all of in the way that he's supposed to be understood, then we will be able to stop ourselves from becoming inundated with wanting to be a nationalist for one country or the other.
Yeah.
This situation comes also in the other beautiful verse of Allama Iqbal, that बेखतर कूद पड़ा आतिशे नमरूद में इश्क अकल है महवे तमाशाए लबे बाम अभी. दोनों लफ्ज जो हैं उस शेर में भी हैं और वही मतलब है. तो जो इश्क जो है ना, वो तो it has perfected its soul so much beyond अकल. अकल तो बड़ी initial चीज है. Everybody needs that. But if you have it, you are not going to end up anywhere unless you you mix it up with the ishq. तो ये बड़े बड़े deep words हैं, इनको you have to analyze them in the full extent. So ये तो Allama को you have to read in totality, not you cannot take one word or two words. He gives you, he has gone from A to Z in the whole circumstance. Okay, what you used to be, what it is not, what it should be. So I don't know, you cannot take anything in isolation.
We are not taking it in isolation. We are taking a lesson from the 6 lines that we read today. So we have to go methodically, and mashallah, you are exactly on the point when you're saying about aql and ishq, and we have covered this, and we have discussed this particular verse that you talked about in the past sessions also, and we will continue to do that. But we really appreciate your input. This is beautiful. How about others? If anybody has to comment.
Yeah, Taiba has a question actually.
Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I mean, we've all kind of have heard this in isolation. Ki Muhammad se wafat hune to hum tere sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I always wonder about this word wafa. Is it just love? Is it following? Is it obedience? So if you can elaborate a little bit on wafa, and if you can give us some practical ways of showing that wafa, because in the essence, we'll get everything, I guess, what's being said after it, if we show that wafa. I'm sorry for the interruption.
It's a beautiful question you've asked, sister, and I can tell you that this is a topic that one can talk and talk and talk, but always remember that wafa is loyalty. Okay, if you are loyal to that message, your aql, your reasoning and all that will get to that point later. First, show the loyalty and eagerness that you will take the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that came to you through our beloved prophet. So in other words, here the secret is just submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Believe that whatever message is coming to us is true. Once you do that, then with that loyalty, try to understand it. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that once you do that, then I am yours, and then you can write your own future the way you like it. Now, this will go, I'll make it simple for you. People will come to you and say, listen, prophets come, bring a message is received, job done, mission accomplished, finish. That's it. Now I have the book, I don't need Prophet Muhammad anymore. This is the argument against that. Be loyal to him, his name, and he will be relevant for you all the time. That is the message in this particular one, that be loyal to him and his name, and that he will be relevant. As long as you have that message of Islam and love for the Holy Prophet, then I will be yours. Once you take that out and just start to use logical things and say, listen, I got the message, I got Quran, I don't need anybody else now, then you have given up on him, on his being, and the blessings that come from that, then you are on your own, so to speak. Then, you know, regardless of how good you are at worship and how sincere you are, how much you achieve, it's up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you. But there are people who know very little, are totally unschooled, unlettered, and that they love beloved Prophet, just like Bilal Habashi did. He was not a scholar of any degree or anything else. He had total compassion for our beloved Prophet, and just that alone was able to give him a very, very high status in Islam. So that is, he was totally loyal to our beloved Prophet. This is an example, and basically it's in the same month today. It's in the same topic, so we can talk about it. We can talk about it more later, but basically this is in simple words. Anybody else can add to it? Nihal, maybe you can expand on it a little bit.
I just had a point, Dr. Rashid Saab. You were trying to establish Iqbal Academy. I was part of that. Ali Chaudhry. And Shamsi Saab, we try to find a place for a library. And I was trying to dig out your contact to bring you in here.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. So, Doctor, we were a whole group of many people, and we were looking for a building. As you know, I'm real estate agents. We looked at.
They were the good old days. Good old days.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, I'm just going to go ahead and answer the question.
He was
if
the
it's okay.
leading. He gave a lot of.
So I think here what's being mentioned is that you know, when it comes to Sunnah, when it comes to what's mandatory and what's not, it's not necessarily about that. People become very legalistic very quickly. And I think that's also one thing that Iqbal tells people to be aware of. The question, what it comes down to is, number one, how much do you know about the Prophet ﷺ, right? And I think that's one thing. People end up approaching the life of the Prophet ﷺ in very secondary ways, but it's important to approach it through primary ways, through a seerah book or something like that. There's a lot of material out there, like how much do you actually know about the Prophet ﷺ? And I think that that's something that people need to really be aware of and keep in mind. That's number one. And then number two is that it's an ongoing learning process. I think the Prophet ﷺ's entire methodology is consistently under attack, with people trying to say that, you know, all sorts of nasty things. And I think becoming acquainted, there's so much seerah literature out there, to actually know about his life is important. Because you know, कि मोहम्मद से वफा तूने तो कोई मोहम्मद से वफा सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम कैसे करेगा अगर उसके बारे में उनकी हयात के बारे में कुछ जानता ही नहीं है. Right? If you only know the bare minimum, you only know यहाँ से सुना हुआ है, वहाँ से सुना हुआ है, मौलवी ने कहा. Well, pick up a book and read about his life. That what material do we not have? And I think humanizing his life is very, very important. So his sunnah is his way. Sunnah literally means a way. So yes, his sunnah is understood in many hadith, but the most important point is understanding the Quran. Sure, that's there, but also understanding his life. You know, and I'll give you a personal idea of this. You know, I've been studying seerah for you know, a few years, and it's very tough, especially in the time and day that we live in, to humanize a man with whom we only have a historical relationship with, because society teaches us what? Oh, there was this prophet, they were a historical figure, in which they were. Isa alayhi salam was a historical figure, but they were still prophets. And the purpose of understanding a prophet's life in the Quran is to give you a human type and example to reference in regards to your difficult days, in regards to your happy days. It's not about a single compendium where you do this and don't do that, do this, don't do that, do this, don't do that, and it's a list of commandments. That aspect of our tradition exists, but to be aware of what he went through. When we talk about death, how do you imagine losing 5 of your children or 4 of your children in your lifetime, right? That happened to the Prophet ﷺ. Knowing how do you mourn, how do you grieve, how do you celebrate happiness, how do you treat your children? The Prophet ﷺ used to kiss his sons, right? As South Asian men, how many of you kiss your sons, right? That's sunnah. That's you apply the ways of the Prophet ﷺ in your life when they are more needed than ever, right? When you can do those things, you're going to be able to implement the sunnah in your life. I think that's what it comes down to, inshallah.
No, I think Lama Sahib has described all these things in detail in all his different and so many books. Now, let me say, Israr-e Khudi, Rumuz-e Khudi. So the stages are that you have to talk multiple things at the same time, even though one word will be after the other, but you have to think all of these. Now, what is Israr-e Khudi? It is the evolution of self. What is a self? People have written books on self. Some of them you can't understand that. I can tell you, I tried, I could not. Lama's Israr-e Khudi, Rumuz-e Khudi, I can very easily understand. Israr-e Khudi is first you evolve yourself, develop yourself up to 99% or even possibly 100%. Okay, what is Rumuz-e Khudi? Rumuz-e Khudi is, there's a beautiful verse of Allama Iqbal. Dar Jamaat. Rumuz-e Khudi is about the Jamaat. When you have gotten together, then you can it will work it out. Otherwise, it will not. Now, this is a verse which is like 100 books. दर जमायत खुद शिकन गर्दद खुदी, दर जमायत खुद शिकन गर्दद खुदी, ताज़े गुल बरगे चमन गर्दद खुदी. If somebody has developed himself, worked very hard, very good, he is not part and parcel of some kind of Jamaat or some force, that his self-evolution is not going to do anything at all. That is what the verse says, Dar Jamaat khud shikan gardad khudi, the same khudi which you developed so highly with all the troubles, if you don't dissolve it into the bigger cause called the Jamaat, you are not going to make it, period. Now, I can understand what I heard, but that is not much of a lama. By the way, Maulana Rumi's Muhabbat and Alama's Ishq, they use different words but the same meaning. Muhabbat or Ishq is the same meaning.
Very true.
Thank you.
Yeah, यहीं देख लेना, इश्क है शमशीर तेरी, and in another verse he said, यकीमो कम अमल पे हम मोहब्बत फातह आलम. And then यकीमो कम अमल पे हम मोहब्बत फातह आलम, जहादे जिंदगानी में है ये मर्दों की शमशीर, and शमशीर is here and ishq is here. So there they added something and he created spiritual, kind of picture in both places.
If I could humbly disagree with that,
Yeah.
Shamshir is not here, we are not here.
Yeah.
They are there in their own word meaning, but if we had the Shamshir and the Akal and everything, we will not be downtrodden like this.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So see, things have to be taken in the bigger prospect, not in the worldly meaning. Worldly meaning will not lead us much or anywhere.
No.
Those manes to guzar gaye, it has been 1400 years, and look at it. We were there for a while, then we went down the drain, and here we are nowhere. So this has to be taken into prospect.
And in every verse, he has quoted one prophet's mission and Allah's, mission together. Oh, yeah.
तो उसके लिए वही बात है ना, पहले तो you have to develop yourself, then after that development you have to dissolve yourself. And look at that. This is a construction, reconstruction, and you were, when you were you knew Israr Khudi, you are not when you are getting into the stage of Ramuz-e Bekhudi. Ramuz-e Bekhudi jo hai, that is the ultimate aim. Aim of Khudi is Bekhudi.
Dr. Saab, I think let's come back to Jawab-e-Shikwa. Slowly, inshallah, we'll get into all those things.
Yeah.
I think one thing we can do, Dr. Udhan, if you're with us, we just wanted to get some closing comments on your thoughts here, because I think it's been a journey. And, I actually appreciate Dr. Mughal for doing something. You actually, Dr. Saab, you did this a couple of months when I was doing Shikwa. You kept reminding me, like, don't let your mind jump to Jawab-e-Shikwa. Focus on Shikwa first, so that you can do the build-up, right? So, Dr. Mughal, I appreciate you doing that, and very much so, because log siyaq ke bahar jaane mein wo dimag daudta hi rehta hai.
Nihal, I am back. I'm in the car now on my way to the masjid. I'm almost there. I'm sorry I missed your last few minutes.
No problem.
I really want to get there. We have a Salatul Tasbih for tonight.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be there, but it's good. We have, mashallah, increasing our circle, getting more people in, more advisors and consultants, and hopefully we'll benefit. We have to, like you said, stick to the topic, the lesson for that day.
Yeah.
And Iqbal, mashallah, covers most aspects of life, and hopefully we will, as we go methodically, we'll be able to touch upon everything, all messages, all lessons that Iqbal has to give us.
Yeah, inshallah, next
That's
week.
very enriching.
Yeah.
Yes.
Next week we'll be doing a summary of the Jawab-e-Shikwa with myself and Dr. Abdul Rahman, and then the week after we'll be talking about Dr. Abdul Rahman's Faryad, his appeal that he had written in respect to Shikwa, Jawab-e-Shikwa. And then the week after that, we will not have class for 4 weeks because it will be Ramadan. And then we will start the Shaitan ki Majlis Shura. That's what our plan is.
Iblis ki Majlis Shura.
Iblis ki Majlis Shura.
even in Ramadan, inshallah, if God gives me the ability, we'll probably be passing on those, 5 to 10 minutes clips, so that people will continue to stay in touch with Iqbal's message on those videos. We'll find a way to convey the teachings of Iqbal, and hopefully we'll come back after Ramadan.
Inshallah.
With virtual meetings, inshallah.
Okay, everyone. Jazakallah khair. I look forward to seeing you all next week.
Okay, very
Thank
Thank
you,
you
Dr.
so much
Rashid, for joining us.
Yeah, nice to
डॉक्टर
see
साहब किस मस्जिद में जा रहे हैं सलातुल तस्बीह में?
मस्जिद नूर यहाँ पे हमारे स्टेटन आइलैंड में, यहाँ पे सलातुल तस्बीह करते हैं माशाल्लाह शब बारात को हर साल।
माशाल्लाह।
हाँ, तो आज भी उन्होंने इमाम साहब ने माशाल्लाह बड़ा एहतमाम कर रखा है, तो मैं पहुंच आया हूँ मस्जिद, almost finding a place to park. Oh boy, it's really crowded.
Okay, everyone. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, alaikum assalam.
you.